Hi.
How to make money podcasting.
Woo. There's me looking at me, looking at me. There we go. Alrighty. Welcome, everybody. I'm not going to be too long on here, just coming to you with 411 of the craziness of the world and the heaviness of this astrology. I don't know about you, but I know it's been hitting me for some time. Yeah, it's just there's a yod. Of course, there's a yod. A yod is a finger of God, and a yod is a very powerful signature. They don't happen very often. People with yods in their chart usually have, there's something there that you're going through or something that you have to deal with within this lifetime kind of thing. So it's a finger of God. It's pointing. So we have a yod with the sun, and this is the last day the sun is in Leo. Tomorrow the sun goes into Virgo. So you have the sun, and then you have Neptune and Pluto, and they're 60 degrees, and then the yod is 180 degrees. So the sun from either point of the two planets, Pluto and Neptune, is 180, which is a conjunction, which makes a yod. So this is a finger of God. It is a triangle. So, and it goes off and it ends at 20. So points off at 29 degrees Leo. And the open end part is in Aquarius. So there's a lot of energy that's in there. So what Aquarius is, so looking at groups, community, how are people fixated on humanitarian effects that are happening in the world, as the sun is trying to get you to still illuminate, as we have a Mercury retrograde in Leo, the opposition of Saturn of Venus off of Saturn. Whew, there's so many things. It's off that. But we're moving in such these times of transformation. Transformational times are not easy times. When you are going through a transformation within your life, there is disruptions and there's craziness. If people are not really going through a lot of transformation and stuff in their life right now, it's just like, okay, I don't know. I think it's false. Honestly, it's false. I know for myself, I'm going through a lot of transformation and changes. Yesterday was a bad day. Today's, I got out. We had to do some errands and stuff like that. So we went and caught the bus and did our little thing. So, but a lot of changes I know are coming up, and a lot of things are coming up for me. One of the biggest things that I'm going to say, and Steve and I sat down and talked, and I'm going to do my lives as often as I can. I'm still going to continue that. And I'm still going to continue if people book in and do readings, and honor anybody who did and bought package readings and stuff like that. But when it comes to teaching and doing classes, I'm going to say no. Not at this time. One, it's very difficult because if you're not getting a response within a week or 2 weeks to get people to register, and I'm just going to throw it, like, I know another person who's doing a great big thing in October, and I know she has a huge following, but she's only advertised for a week and she's already got 10 people registered for it and paid the early bird fee thing. So when people say, like, it's oh, it's because of this or it's because of that, and I'm just like, no, it's just whatever it is for me that I am supposed to be doing. No, not at this time. No, I'm not. I It's just I'm not I don't have if I get 5 people or 10 people to do it, cool. But when I get one person here and one person there, it's not worth my full time. It isn't worth my full time. And I think that's the whole thing is that this is sort of a opening or an awareness of saying, you know what, maybe it's time for me to change directions in some ways. I'm committed to some markets and I'm going to be doing those markets. I think I got one or two markets that are coming up in the fall and I'm going to do them. I'm very excited about them and to do them and to do readings at these markets. But that's that's about all my energy is going to be able to take. I know there's a lot of changes that are happening within myself, like physically, mentally, and when it comes to um, having to take care of myself physically, especially after the accident, you don't realize how much that really takes a toll. Oh, look at that. I got a big hole there. Takes a toll out of your body, and that you're going through pain every day and the heaviness of that. So I had to sit down and we had a discussion yesterday, Steve and I, and I'm looking at the astrology and I'm going, yeah, this is transitional times, man. This is huge. This is getting, because I being a Scorpio, so anything that is fixed, it's squaring my sign. So it's getting me to look at things like in the muggle world, in a mundane world, and saying, if this isn't making me money, if this isn't paying my bills, and I'm having to struggle every single day to pay my bills or to get food or get, whatever it is, then this isn't working out, right? If I want to do this and people know me and or give my name to somebody and I'm able to book them in, cool. I'll book them in. But otherwise, it's just not worth that putting it out there. And I mean, I've worked in stores and that many times. I've worked in many different stores and there's always been some kind of craziness that's happened within the stores. Either they didn't want to pay or there's a jealousy or you sit there and nobody comes in. So again, that's a waste of time for me. I could be doing so many other things or other things that I would rather be doing. So I've been offered 3 days a week at the rec center. So I'm going to take that and do the 3 days a week. It's not very much, but it's something. And that's what I got to look at. And maybe it's going to open up another door in another way. And I'm going to have the faith and the hope and the courage to do that. Doing the astrology every day. Oh, I love that. I love doing the astrology. I do. But if I've through my years of experience in running a business, if your business is not making it, it's a hobby. That's all it is. Honestly, it's a hobby. If your business is not making a profit, and I know sometimes it takes a while for your business to make a profit, but if you are not even breaking even with your business, then it's not you got to change directions or you got to look at it in a different way. And that's where I'm at. I got to look at it in a different way and see what other openings or what other ways I could continue doing what I'm doing. If classes are come up that to do classes and there's enough people to do it, as some people got together and offered it, I might consider it. I might consider it. Um, I feel like for others who do, like I know for Charlene asking, you got so many Reiki masters in your area. You'd be better off getting a hold of a Reiki master in your area and finishing it off there and doing it one-on-one and hands-on, or even hosting. You got a store, get a Reiki master and have her teach in your store. You have that advantage. That's what I mean, definitely. That's what I would be doing if I had a store. Bring it in, bring that energy in. I mean, you have the facilities to do it. Definitely do it, go from there. And I feel that's so important because that's also going to build up your business. So this is where I feel changes are coming in. And a lot of them, especially when we are changing frequencies into different dimensions and different roads, however you want to look at it, it is going to be disruptive. And we are coming into an extremely disruptive time. And we're seeing it. We're seeing it with well, they said our inflation's only 2.5%. But when you actually look over the course of the last 4 years, it's not 2.4%. It's a lot more. It's more up into the 15 to 20%. The 2.5% is only within the last, I think, 2 years or something or less. So that's where the 2.5% comes from. And this is where it's like, the prices might be staying the same, but the incomes aren't changing. And there's other things that are going to be happening when it comes along with inflation and the pressures of war and other things that are coming down, the changes that are coming in our world. So this is where you have to make a spiritual decision with inside yourself and look at it. And I feel like, especially when we have a yacht at the last degree in Leo, it's really getting you to really look at what brings you light in your life, what highlights you, what brings that illumination that you need within your world. I'm a speaker of truth and I always will be a speaker of truth. Not everybody likes what I say. That's fine. It's, coming out a few years ago and saying what I did about the elixir is, caused me a great deal of of grief when it came to um, clients and people. So, which is fine. People had to go through and figure out. Sometimes when you get the truth given to you, and it's right there in your face, it's so hard to believe that that's true. It's like finding out that I don't know, like a really good, like a person you knew and you upheld and you really loved them and they were very good friends and stuff. You found out that they had this crazy seedy past and you're just like, that just doesn't resonate with me, it doesn't make sense in my head. And I think that that has to do with the world around. And it's hard for people to really see that that can't be the world, or that can't be my government. That can't be, the way that we, things are realigning within our lives. But this is really much where we have to really go in and find that spiritual essence of ourselves so that we can rise above, so that we can go forward in our journey and how it resonates for you. And that's a hard one too, because being a spiritual person and a person who comes out here and talks and everything else, sometimes it's, you don't want to be the failure, or you want to appease everybody, right? And that's a hard one. And because you're going through whatever you're going through, and sometimes you put that aside, and you shouldn't ever put how you're feeling and how your mental health is aside. And I feel like that's where a lot of this frequencies are coming in, is getting you to really look at your health and how you're dealing with it, so that you're able to walk into the path that you need to walk into. And how does that feel and how does that look like for your own self? And as you do that, you're able to be that person for whoever else is needing you at that time. And that's such a important piece to, especially the astrology that's coming out right now. And with Mercury retrograde, we got another week for Mercury retrograde in Leo, and then it'll start going forward and then go in, start bombing along again. And this is so much. There's just so much like that's crushing us, and I mean that crushing us, getting us to really mold into something new and get us to really come into that light and illumination and that truth of who we are as soulful walkers upon this earth. There's many who are going to come out and they're going to seem like wonderful people and great, and they're going to try and lead you a certain way. And some are going to be great and some of them are going to be false. And this is where your intuition is really going to be having to come into play. There's a lot of people there's one that really, he bothers me, is that Bashard or whatever. To me, he's false. to me, because when you start channeling and you don't know who the fuck you're channeling, or you think it's some great being, you really, I don't know, sometimes you got to question. It might sound good, because a lot of times, these beings that are coming in aren't they, they'll sound great, but I'm going to tell you they're not great. There's an ulterior motive, and there's a part of you that you're selling out to, and that's not a good thing. To be selling a part of yourself, and you don't even realize you're doing it with many of those. So, so going forward, I'm going to still be doing, my lives. I don't know when they'll come out, in different times and stuff like that. Billy Carson's an asshole. Yeah, I know. I posted that. The thing about Easter Island. I never liked Billy Carson. I've listened to him a few times, and he's just, some of the things that he said doesn't make sense. I listened to a guy, Museum of Tarot, and he'll come out and he will show you facts. That's what I like. Billy just says things off the cup of his hand. He's another one, and there's quite a few that are out there that do that. But I think this is where we really have to look at, look and trust ourselves. If it feels off, it feels off, right? If it feels right, it feels right. And I know for the one person who's having this thing in October, I find, for her, I mean, yeah, she has a big following, but God bless her, she also has a lot of money behind her. To do the things that she does, and she has beautiful property, and she has a yurt, and she's just, but she's been blessed to be able to do things like that. And there's many out there who are blessed to be able to do those types of things. And yeah, they might still have their struggles, and there's parts of it that we don't see, but there is a blessing that is upon her as well. So, but follow, I mean, there's people are, their true colors are going to be revealed. People's true colors, the way that they are, as people come and see me, this is who I am. I am who I am, and I try to be as kind and loving to people as I can. But then again, I have to come in and I have to really honor everything that's going on in my life at this time. And when I have a $600 utility bill and I can't even get anybody in to book a reading, I'm not trying to complain or anything here, but if I can't get people to book in a reading, or I can't get somebody to even register for something, even with a special, it's hard for me to continue this on, without saying, okay, I got to make some kind of changes in order to keep the roof over my head, right? And that's so important. It's so important that for people to understand, you gotta, it's great to be a spiritual person. It's great to be able to do readings and that, but you got to be able to make a living with it. If you're able to make a living at it, God bless. Do it. Do it. And if you're good at it, right? Get out there and do it. But if you are not, if you're able just to do a reading here, a reading there, get a job. Like, get a job. You might say, well, that's not what my calling is. Your call, that might not be feeling what your calling is. And I've gone through this, but this is part of your ego as well that gets in the way. And you got to watch that. Because at the end of the day, you don't want to be sitting there and being handed a notice, or your car being repoed, or having to be evicted from your place, or your cat doesn't have food, or your dog doesn't have food, or your kids don't have food, because you feel like your calling is to be a tarot reader and you're not going to try and do anything else. This is where you could go in and you could be a counselor, you could be a coach, you could be something else, and get that education to do that and carry it on in a different way, right? And integrate it in a different way, right? Or become the massage therapist if you want to become a healer. And then you can implement and set up your own business. There's ways of doing it. And I find sometimes if you can get in there within the mainstream, and that's how you make change, right? That's how you make change. You come in, and if you're able to come in a mainstream and implement some of your spiritual self within that mainstream, that's how you make the change. That's how you can really bring in different information to people and allow them to open up and even find people that you didn't even think were there. Like, it's amazing how many people, when you go into an office and you find how many people are like, oh, I love tarot, or I love angel cards. Oh, I love astrology. I follow that all the time. And otherwise, until they can find somebody else they can talk about it, they don't say anything. So I find there's different ways to do what it is that you do. And if you are being blessed to being able to do what you do, bless it every single day. But you also got to watch where your ego gets in the way as well. And that's so important, because the ego can really get you to say, oh, well, don't, keep on doing it, keep on trusting, keep on trusting. Look at, oh, here. And then you get a little nibble and you say, oh, yeah, look at, I'm doing really well. And you're just like, well, not really, because you think $100 is a lot of money, but when you have no food in your house, or your car needs gas, or the insurance is due, $100 doesn't go very far. And I think that's where people really, in doing this work, it's not, this is, doing the spiritual work is not for the faint hearted. It really isn't. You really have to be able to make sure that you cross your T's and dot your I's, and you're doing things, you know, in order to create the positive return that you need, because it is a business. And that's the other piece. And I think I'm going to talk about a little bit more about understanding the business part of the spiritual world, and the business part of what it is to create the business that you want to create, right? Because it is important to understand how to do the different things, and having the stamina to do it, and staying in that truth of who you are. You can still work at a muggle job and still be a spiritual person. You can still, be able to do a reading here and there and still, be that spiritual person. And that's my direction I'm taking, is that my all my eggs aren't going into this basket anymore. And I think that's part from back in January, when I said this was my healing journey, and getting in the car accident is coming to a place where, yeah, this is an awakening. This is a wake up call, and saying, okay, you know what? You have to look at things in a new way. You really have to look at what is my, see, I keep on thinking, is that, okay, today I'm great for today, but my thoughts go, okay, well, I can't continue this next month. Like, I can't continue doing and just getting by, right? That's not what I want. That's not where I want to go. There's many other things I want to do, and many other things I want to create in my own world. And this astrology is really showing that. And when you are trying to fight against it, it's going to bat you down. It's not going to uphold you. It's going to pull you down. It's going to tell you, what the fuck are you doing? Like, that's not what, if you are really battling something, take a moment, step out, and look at it. What am I battling? Why am I not, the thing, why am I so frustrated with this situation? Whatever the situation could be, even that you're working at a job that is just not fulfilling you in the way that you want, or not giving you the access to other things you want to do. Then you're going to have to do that time out as well, and say, okay, when I need to step back from this, because otherwise it's going to come and it's going to say, here, you're going to have to make the change now, and you're going to have to do it now. And if you don't do it now, well, you know what? You're the one who's going to be ending up getting hurt even more. And I don't mean that physically, but it could be in a mental way. It could be in a mundane way, you know, where, especially when there's one person I know who's having to close his business. He's got to change it in a different way, and downsize everything. Right, and it's difficult. I mean, he had to do this in less than a month. It's all of a sudden his lease is done, his lease that, or they pulled the lease on him or something. And He couldn't afford it anyways anymore. He used to be like his business was making over $1 million a year plus. It's not anymore. It's not anymore. And he thought that, okay, I'm investing, I'm expanding, I'm doing this all. And then bang, all of a sudden it's gone. All of a sudden, the clientele that was there or that were following him or that were buying into it is not there as it was before. And that's why a lot of businesses are going belly up. People don't have the money to continue on. And that's the same thing with, when you have and I know a few of you here have, your own stores. You got to be truthful with the stores because I'm going to tell you it's going to be a hard fight as things get tough because when you look at the economy, the prices aren't going to go down. So when a deodorant is 10, $15 for a thing of deodorant, whatever, it's like that price is not going to go back to $4.99 or $3.99 unless you go to the dollar store. But then you got to be careful because the brand that's on in the dollar store is not actually the brand all the time, so you really have to watch it. So anyways, that price isn't going to go down. So when the person is having to look at, their wage, and their wage isn't going up in the same way that inflation is going up. And this is where everything, and everybody's like, "Well, I'm waiting for the big crash." Honey, yeah, there's going to be a crash, but that doesn't mean the deodorant's going back to $3.99. That person still has to make their money. They still have to pay their rent. They still have to pay their utilities. And when theft is going up and people are trying to just get by, people start to reprioritize on where they're going to direct their money, right? And that's what I find even for me. And I know others um, are finding it the same way. They're not getting the people in like they used to get. And not saying it's not going to turn around, it will, but it's not going to turn around right away. It's going to take a little bit before it turns around. But we got to go through this craziness. Pluto still in the next 10 days, 9 days is going back into Capricorn. And when Pluto goes back into Capricorn, it is going back and finishing off what it started in 2008. It's going back and finishing everything off what it started in 2019 and 2022. And that's what's going to be happening over the next 2 months, September, October, and into November. That Pluto's going to come in and it's just going to stir up a bunch of shit, and it's going to feel like hell. And it's going to feel like you are being torn all over the point. And that's why you have something like a yod today that is getting you to really look at your truth, right? With that sun at 29 degrees Leo, and it goes into Virgo tomorrow. So as it's looking at that 29 degrees Leo, saying, are you directing everything to your heart and to your higher self? Or are you still playing within and saying, well, I got to keep it this way because this is the way it's got to look? Because Aquarius, even though they like to be the individual, they like to be the individual that still gets approval from the people around them, or still has that peace, because this is like you're coming into the 11th house. The 11th house, you're almost at the 12th house, and we're dealing with Neptune in the 12th house. So that all has to do with karma, endings, things not going the way that we want it to go. With Saturn there. And Saturn is just trying to make us find and it's retrograde, to try and find the grounding, trying to find, how far do we stretch ourselves before everything breaks, as we are trying to move in a new direction and feeling like we're not moving in that direction that we need to go into. And so taking that big step and saying, you know what, there's some things I got to let go of at this time, and that's okay. Will there be people pissed off at me? Probably. But that's okay. People can be pissed off at me. People can be angry at me. People can whine and cry and text me and say, well, I want you to do this. And I'm like, I can't. Mentally, I cannot do it right now. So I'm unable to uphold it. And plus, the other part too is like when I do text people or I do contact people, they fucking ghost me, you know, or they're just calling or asking me for advice and nothing is coming in return. And that sounds very seedy, but I'm a Scorpio, man. And I got to say, you do hold a grudge and you're just like, fuck it, I ain't going to do that. When is the best time for Sag? Because the last few weeks have been rough with the family deaths and family fights. Yeah. When's the best time for Sag? Well, honey, that's a good question. Um, I'm gonna say things are still going to be crazy and turbulent for some time, and especially with Pluto going back into Capricorn. Um, the thing is, when it comes to when family are fighting, if they're fighting over the death, people act funny when people die, and it's like again that's going back, coming because you're being a fire sign. You got to look at, I got to come back into my higher truth. I can't delve into the bullshit that everybody else is diving into. And I got to step away from it. And sometimes stepping away from it, and especially, the thing about Sag is that you want to hold everybody accountable. You got to hold them for accountable, but you also got to come to a time when you say, is this really worth my time? Is this really worth my energy in doing this, or where can I just take myself into a higher place? And you know what? Let them fight among themselves. And saying to them, I got to let them fight among themselves, because it's not worth it. It really isn't worth it in the end, because the thing is that what people are fighting over is like, oh, I want this, or I want that, or they're fighting over something, and you got to look at it at the end of the day. Everything that we own is meaningless. It's meaningless, right? The TV, the diamond ring, the paintings, it's all meaningless. And if people are sitting there and fighting over that, or people are just fighting over trivial shit, and I know a lot of people, especially depending what they're fighting over, even if it's like a big, I want to have this and I'm going to fight over this, whether it's a house or land or things like that. It's at the end of the day, it's like, okay, what are we going to gain out of this? And I know some things are really worth fighting over and some things are not. But at the end of what are we going to gain over this? Is this really worth the headache? Right? Because I feel sometimes when you just let the elastic band go, because everything's being stretched and you let go, that person ends up falling on their ass, right? And falling worse than they were before. Death is inevitable right now. We are in a time. My daughter just texted me a friend they found dead in his apartment. I didn't ask for the particulars and stuff like that. I feel it's, whatever. But death is inevitable, whether it is through drugs, health from the elixir, or other things that are going on when it comes to health and health issues that are happening at this time. We're coming into the highest death rates ever for the next 20 years, higher deaths than there is going to be births. And my kids have witnessed more deaths than they have births, and they're all under 30. So that's part of the frequencies and the energies that we are going into as well, you know. And when you say the best time for Sagittarius, there's more. I got to say, there's more to your sign than the sun sign. You got to know the moon, the rising, and where the planets are, and what sign, what house is your sun in, right? Is it in the first house or is it in the 12th house, right? So there's a lot more there. It's more just verbal attacks, not about stuff, but just trying to pick fights. I'm trying to stay positive, but man, it's not easy. Pray for them. Pray for them. Verbal attacks. I'm fucking used to verbal attacks. People can, it's got to be, you got to be water on the duck's back. And at the end of the day, you know what? You just bless them. Don't argue back with them and give them up to the Holy Spirit and ask for inner peace and a miracle. And that's what you got to do. As when people attack you and say things, they're hurt themselves, right? And it's just not worth it, you know? And that's the whole, that's it's just not worth it, man. You just bless them and love them and give them up to the Holy Spirit. And for the people who have died, pray for the souls of the faithful departed. In the mercy of God, rest in peace. Amen. Pray for the souls. Pray for those who have died and pray for those of the families, right? Death is a hard one because people don't understand what death is, right? And that's the other thing too. I deal with death differently than other people. I feel, because death to me is a transition, and understanding what that transition is. A lot of people get hung up on the death and of they really hurt inside because of the death and of that person dying. It's not that I don't hurt and I don't miss the person, but I understand that they are better off where they are. And a lot of times when people grieve, they're grieving because of their own ego, right? And because of their shoulda, coulda, wouldas, or I could have done this, I should have spent more time with this person and that person. And yeah, it's sad. It's sad to know that your friend has died. It's sad to know that your mother, father, aunt, sister, brother, cousin died, and it's horrible in some instance. But here's the Scorpio thing, it's life. Life is death, and death is life. And out of the death comes life, and out of life comes death. You know? As my mom always said, please don't cry at my funerals, go and don't wear black. Wear bright colors and go out and celebrate and dance. Definitely. Celebrate the life. Really? It's not worth sitting there crying over. That's why I said I want a Viking funeral. My daughter keeps getting angry at me whenever she asks. I'm like, I'm fucking 60. I'm not dead yet, but I want a Viking funeral. Put me out in the middle of the lake with a bunch of fireworks and TNT and shoot an arrow at it and blow it up. And then celebrate. Like, don't put me in the fucking ground. Don't put me in an incinerary of where some other person's been burnt. Like, fuck that. Put me on a bonfire. Sizzle me away. I got a lot of fat. It'll be a lot of sizzling. That's how I think the celebration should be. If you want to put a plaque somewhere, so maybe my great grandchild will remember. My great grandchild won't even know who the fuck I am. Or my great grandchild. Do you know who? I mean, most people don't even know who their great grandmother is. Some people don't even know who the fuck their grandmother is or their family history. So, hey, go out with a bang and live your life. Right? And that's so important right now. Three of Swords. I mean, we came up 3 of Swords, sorrow, hurt, pain. Yeah, there's a lot of hurt and pain right now. It really takes from you. I've been so blessed with so many people helping me out lately, and I send them out love and light, and I thank you very much. But this is where I have to take a stand and start doing what I need to do for me and do for my husband, so we can go forward and into the ways that we would want to go forward. Yeah, and things aren't going to move the way you want. It's going to be slow. Swords are hard. Swords are air. Air signs are difficult, right? Because they're straight for it. Here it is. It's a double-edged sword, right? So when the page is reversed, it's saying, you know what? You're not gonna get everything that you want or the information. Everything's not gonna come the way that you would like it. Mercury's still retrograde for another week. Right? So it's going to take a little bit for you to get the full impact or the full information of what it is that you need to receive at this time. And with that, know that there's light at the end of the tunnel. You're not going to like everything that you're given. You're going to always want, oh, I wish it was like this, or I wish it was like that. But God is always giving you a new opportunity to try something new in a new way. And sometimes that's a very difficult one to fester up on, and to step into, because you want it differently, or you want it to look different, and it causes you heartache, and you're not getting everything that you want, so the emotions run high. So honor yourself right now with that. Emotions are high, things are crazy. you know um you're looking at everything that's happening in the UK, and the craziness that's happening there. We're going to be looking at a lot of craziness that's going to be disrupting within, um, in Canada in the next little while, and the craziness that's happening there. And this is where it's like, you got to put, number one, you got to put God first. You got to put God or the goddess or whomever you call first, and and go in that direction, and put that first before anything else, right? And put that truth there. So there you go. Have a blessed day, and may the Lord and Lady watch over and bless you in all that you say and all you be and all you do. Have a great day, and we will talk to you all so very soon. And have a blessed one.